And Gisbergen, back in victory lane again, on the road course, but can he make the chase? Formula One, George Russell trying to make a statement, don't cut him out of the championship. IMSA, some big crashes at Watkins Glen, Kobe's here to recap it together. MotoGP, a new points leader, and that's where Trackhouse Dream Weekend really started looking great. Welcome to Grid Live Weekend wrap-up of all the major motorsports programs from across the world. I'm Joe Sanviego, and with me we have Kobe Lambeth from Grid Tonight, which will air right here on YouTube on Wednesday, and airing tomorrow, Grid Rising, Matthew Bro, Tanner Smith, plenty to recap from Sonoma and across the motorsports world, around the US, Mexico, Brazil, Canada, a lot of racing. And of course, we could cover all this racing thanks to our Patreon investors, Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, David, Matthew, Crystal, Nico, and Gloria, our newest investors. You can also do Buy Me a Coffee, YouTube Super Chat. Jamie leads the leaderboard with 5 total. Jason's in second place with 3. Everybody else at 1. So plenty of time to get on the leaderboard. And subscribe, hit that bell icon if you're watching us on YouTube. Don't miss any of our programs, and across social media at Grid Network TV. And of course, our website. I know, Matthew, you've been working on it. Article for the NASCAR recap, and plus IndyCar recaps all season long from Isha Bourgeois. So a lot of motorsports coverage in part of the Grid Network team, and all thanks to our investors on Patreon and right here on YouTube. Let's get started, Matthew. We'll jump right into the chase, which is what Shane Van Gisbergen hopes to get into. He won the race at Sonoma, only his second win of 2026, second win of the race weekend, as he won the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race, which I know you'll review tomorrow on Grid Rising. But across the pond, at the Dutch TT motorcycle race, part of MotoGP, Trackhouse swept the race weekend with the sprint win and the Grand Prix win, plus a 1-2 in the Grand Prix today. So a big weekend for Trackhouse Racing as they won across the motorsports entries of MotoGP, of NASCAR, with SVG getting the O'Reilly race. When you look at this big weekend, and Sonoma particularly, it sort of stands out to me. 2 wins from Shane Van Gisbergen, 1 win from Dan Suarez. So this is becoming Trackhouse's most successful track. How big is this for Trackhouse to have a weekend sweep?
It's tremendous. This is an organization, Joe, that Tanner, myself, and even you were talking about earlier in the year, like, what the hell are they doing? And they seem to have still a lot of those moments, I would argue, like, what are they doing? But at the same time, just this race weekend was one of the best, I think, the best we have ever seen out of Trackhouse Racing affiliated drivers. Obviously, on the MotoGP side, Ayagur and then Raul Fernandez, both winning and finishing second to each other in the Netherlands, I believe it was. And then to go and then have Trackhouse affiliated drivers driving for Junior Motorsports in the O'Reilly race, Shane Van Gisbergen and Connor Zilisch finishing first and second. I know Ross had a really bad day in the Jordan Anderson machine, so we won't talk about that. But then even at the Cup level, you had Shane winning, getting the broom out with the sweep, but Connor Zilisch finishing 7th, which is his career best in the NASCAR Cup Series. So overall, heck of a day for that organization, heck of a race weekend for that organization. It is huge, especially since I believe they announced they're building like a multi-million-dollar facility at somewhere near Kannapolis, North Carolina. I think Kobe would know more about the North Carolina region, but pretty sure that's close to Charlotte and Mooresville area. But yeah, so they're building a new facility, really putting forth more money. I know Justin Marks has pretty much unlimited money, whether people know it or not. That's why he has 2 sports teams. And then obviously new sponsors coming on board. I think Superfile, obviously, on the MotoGP side, getting their wins. And then on Shane's O'Reilly car for Junior Motorsports, getting their win. And then I think they almost won this year in the Cup Series. So, overall, what a heck of a weekend, Joe, for the Trackhouse Racing drivers, whether it was the actual team winning 3 times and then or their affiliated drivers winning 4 times. So clap for them.
Yeah, I got to say a clap for them. And overall, this has to be a big feel-good story for that team, considering how many times not only have we been on there, but other people across the motorsports industry been talking about what's going on with Trackhouse over at NASCAR. Shane Van Gisbergen has been their only driver consistently in the top 16 in the points. He returns back in the top 16, so I know that's a big relief for him. But you look at Connor Zilisch, 34th, Ross Chastain, 22nd. To have not only Shane Van Gisbergen get this win, but to see your other teams get a win, that's a historic moment for a team to say, we just swept 2 different race disciplines that we enter. Not a lot of teams can say that. And we know there's teams like Penske, they've been known for racing multiple series. A couple times they've had a little bit of success with weekend sweeps, but it's not often. Trackhouse can now say, we've done that, we've accomplished that. I think this is something that could really be a motivating moment, especially in the MotoGP side. I think that's going to be really huge for them. You look at the NASCAR side, I think this is one of those moments where they're going to feel like, hey, we can start putting together some good races. This is a highlight. I mean, when it comes to sponsors and all, they could say, hey, we're one of the few teams to win in both series. And in fact, we swept one race weekend. Say that your team was good in 2 completely different disciplines across 2 different continents. This is just huge for that team out of Nashville. I know you mentioned their new facility going up in North Carolina, but I feel like this has to be one of those landmark moments for that team where they could hopefully build up momentum, start proving, hey, we're a good program, not just in NASCAR, but in MotoGP. And maybe we want to enter somewhere else too. I feel overall, when we saw Kevin Magnussen in Project 91 last weekend, which we know is Trackhouse, that just seemed to almost get people excited again. Like, oh, Project 91's back. This is what Trackhouse said they will do a lot more before. So maybe they can start regaining some momentum. Of course, it's all going to have to happen on the racetrack, and the joint celebration today, that's going to be met with determination and a lot of work on Monday, because SVG now 14th in the points, but we have no more road courses coming up. Ross Chastain, 22nd in the points. He needs to try to get his way into the top 16. Connor Zilisch, despite his great race, still 34th in the points. SVG at 425 points. You look at Austin Cindric, he is right behind there, just not far at all, 401 points. So only 24 points between the 2 of them. Eric Jones is 17th, and he has 12 points behind. So you look at the 8 ovals remaining. Do you believe Shane Van Gisbergen will be in the top 16?
To be honest with you, as much as I want to say yes, I don't think he will. And just looking at some of the tracks coming up, I mean, he's never been to Chicagoland. Usually he does great first-time appearances on the road courses, but when it comes to the ovals and stuff like that, not really his strong suit. Atlanta, he did pretty well at, so I'm confident he could do that again. North Wilkesboro, I don't know how he's going to really do there. Indy, he was like very mid of the field last season. Iowa, not good at all for him last season. So I think he's kind of going to fall a little bit just because of the way. And then Richmond, he was like okay at last year. There's just like the next 5. But the reason why I say that is I think there's going to be a tremendous point swing this race weekend, and I hope this is not a cold take exposed, but I think Eric Jones is going to have an incredible race weekend at Chicagoland, and I think he is going to swing the points drastically in his favor to the point where he is going to be within 3 to 5 points of Shane, despite being like 30-something back from him currently. Because Eric Jones, I know he raced at Chicagoland 3 times, but twice with Joe Gibbs Racing, he would finish 6th and 7th in 2018 and 2019. So it's been a pretty damn long time since he's raced there, just like the entire Cup Series field. But I think someone like Eric Jones is a legit threat for that final spot. I think if Ryan Preece keeps it up, especially in these next coming tracks, especially the short tracks, he has Shane's number there, obviously. Austin Cindric is very quiet. Like, I feel like nobody says anything about him at all, and he's still 16th in the points. So I think those four guys especially, well, those three guys especially, behind Shane and Ryan Preece, Austin Cindric, and Eric Jones, probably have a better shot of making the chase than him. But if he continues to get stage points, like, I think the best thing for him today, I know he won and scored 55 points minimum, but to be able to be so good to get 8 additional stage points was awesome. And I think that really helped his case. You saw it with Ty Gibbs getting 20 stage points and a third place finish, completely jumping 2 places in the standings up to 4th. I know we'll touch on that, but for Shane, he's just got to go points racing. I don't really know he'll be a threat at Chicagoland. I don't think he'll be a threat at the other short tracks like Iowa, stuff like that, at least in the regular season. During the chase, he might have a shot at, like, say, Martinsville or something. But, yeah, for me, I really don't think Shane will be in the top 16 when Daytona comes. But for the logistics of it, I kind of hope he is, just because I think it'd be pretty cool for him to only have 2 wins and still make the chase. Shows that he has truly jumped leaps and bounds on ovals from where he was last season.
Shane Van Gisbergen has a bit of a tricky road, but I think it's going to be a little tricky for everyone. I agree with you. I think Chicagoland, we could see some surprises. The Toyotas are really good there, and it just seems Eric Jones. I mean, when you look at what he did at Michigan International Raceway, Pocono seemed to be having a decent day, and then 2 road courses, I feel, okay, they're road courses. They're a different beast. So we could see some surprises at Chicagoland. Echo Park Speedway, we know he's gotten a top 10 there. Can he get another top 10 there? Of course, but you got to be careful avoiding those wrecks. I mean, heck, he got spun by Kyle Larson at that race, but he still came back to score a top 10. North Wilkesboro, a brand new short track. Granted, it's historic, but for all these drivers, it's going to be brand new. Curious to see how that's going to go. I feel like now, if he has a top 10 day at Chicagoland, maybe a top 10 day at North Wilkesboro, Indianapolis, he might feel pretty good. Iowa Speedway, that's going to be the challenging one, I feel. Richmond, there might be a surprise if we see Austin Dillon again stealing those valuable points. Then it comes to New Hampshire and Daytona. It's going to be very close. I will say this too. My concern is if he is to fall out of top 16 before we get to Daytona, he is going to have a harder time getting in unless he wins at the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona. He might be the driver that is in the must-win situation, and that's why I feel like with this format of the chase, we don't have when you're in, but you might be a driver that I need to win this race to get my spot in. So I think it'll be a lot of fun to see how this is all going to play out. And then in the chat room, the Ace Stealer, fun fact, SVG has 8 Cup wins and 68 starts with an average of 8.5 Cup races a win, plus a 50% record of road courses, and he's 4 more wins to be the first driver to have 100 wins in sedan stock car racing. That's really interesting, especially with supercar racing, Cup Series racing, 100 wins, 2 complete continents. And actually, I know Shane Van Gisbergen, road course expert, but let's not forget, he's done World Rally Championship, Rally 2, got a podium, so he's the only driver to score points in technically 3 series in the grid ranking with the supercars, that World Rally effort, Rally New Zealand, and then here in NASCAR. When it comes to his career and his numbers, I feel like this is a driver where if SVG continues to do something, especially that 50% record on road courses and exceeds Jeff Gordon's number of road course wins, I feel this is a driver that potentially, if NASCAR does the top 100, because they did the top 75 and they did the top 50, I think he might be one of those names on that list. Do you agree with that idea?
I don't see why. It's not impossible at all. I think if he continues to average 1 or 2 race wins a year, I mean, he's well, he's older than Logano, but he's younger than Ricky Stenhouse Jr. So I think he's about 36, 37. So if he's got even 5 years left in the Cup Series of winning 2 or 3 races a season, I mean, that would put him in the 20s. So and then not counting he's got 6 O'Reilly wins. So if he keeps doing that, gets a couple truck wins in there, I think absolutely he could be in that consideration. He's already, I believe, they announced after he won the O'Reilly race, he has the most NASCAR wins in his career by a foreign-born racer in the sport of NASCAR across trucks, O'Reilly, and Cup. I believe he just passed Marcos Ambrose, one of his mentors. So that's pretty cool to think about. So I think he can continue on. I think without a doubt, I know you can argue Daniel Suarez is the only foreign-born champion in this sport in the top 3 series, which I believe that's true, with his 2016 O'Reilly championship. I think Shane will end up being the most successful in terms of victories, and at least the most, and it won't be touched for a very long time. So, yeah, shout out Shane Van Gisbergen. It's such a cool thing to hear on one, like you mentioned, Joe, being the only guy to score in 3 of the grid ranking series. That's pretty impressive. I know Scott McLaughlin's definitely has 2. I don't know. I can't think off the top of my head who else has 2, but those are definitely 2 of the main ones. So yeah, it's pretty. Just what an awesome thing to even think about. So shout out Shane.
And that's the one thing with the grid ranking, just to see drivers across the board and riders, because of MotoGP, when they cross over, like MotoGP, I know Valentino Rossi has been doing sports car racing. Of course, that's the Grid Endurance Performance Index. But when you see that, it really shows like the caliber of some of these drivers. I feel a lot of people, they see Juan Pablo Montoya on F1 coverage. They remember he was a good racer in IndyCar, got championships, won the Indy 500, won in NASCAR, won in Formula One, was the rival for Michael Schumacher for a while. I think while across the board, maybe in IndyCar with his Indy 500 wins, people will just sort of, oh yeah, there's Montoya. I think with Shane Van Gisbergen, he's going to be a legend in the Supercar Series. I think he's going to be remembered as one of the more successful drivers from New Zealand to come up here and, like you said, probably have the wins. Maybe not the championship. It's going to be really hard, but never say never, because, I mean, what he has done in his career, he's proven he'll just, if he could get in it, learn it, he'll do what he can to win in it. And I think that's something we all enjoy in the grid ranking, seeing some of these athletes, racers getting the job done. Now, one racer that's going to be trying to get the job done this next coming weekend, because the bottom of the chase we've been talking about with Shane Van Gisbergen. Let's talk about the top of the chase, Tyler Reddick. Not a good day. No fault of his own. Something with the power steering took him out at the beginning of stage 2. Fell multiple laps down, and with really only one caution, I believe, for cause, while the others were stage breaks. Just could not get back in. Looked like he was going to lose a lot of ground to Denny Hamlin, but Denny Hamlin, tough break, got spun. So Denny Hamlin took the points lead. First points lead change of the year for the NASCAR Cup Series. Happens this late, but it's only 1 point of difference because of that spin and Denny Hamlin losing all that ground. You look at Tyler Reddick, he has to feel some sense of relief that it's only 1 point, but when you look at his last 4 races, only 1 top 5 finish, and of course that was the second place. Then 3 finishes outside the top 20. Is this a slump going on for the 45? And do they change their approach over the next 8 races?
I wouldn't say it's a slump per se, just because he was very close to winning at the San Diego Street Course at Naval Base Coronado. It just happened to be he rubbed tires with Corey Haim and then ended up giving up the spot and then losing the tire ultimately. So I wouldn't say it's a slump per se, but if you do look at, like you said, with Tyler Reddick, obviously not finishing outside the top 15 at all until we got to Michigan, but then he followed that up with a second place finish. And then he almost had another second place finish at Coronado, but then ended up with an issue finishing 25th and then finished obviously 36th at Sonoma. He still did finish the race though, so good for him. But I think the reason why it looks like a slump is because Denny Hamlin has just been that good to catch him. So I think he can bounce back at Chicagoland. I don't believe he's ever raced at Chicagoland, at least in the NASCAR Cup Series, because he did those part-time one-offs in 2019 with RCR, but I don't think Chicagoland was on that list for Tyler Reddick. So it's curious. I mean, you have a 30-year-old driver, I think, at this point, Tyler Reddick is, and it will be his first time going to Chicagoland in the Cup Series. So yeah, it'll be really fun to see. And I think even, I don't know, in the O'Reilly Series, I don't think he even raced there too much, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to really look into that. I can't find it. So yeah, for him, I would say they should change their approach. Their approach should now really be on points. You already have 5 wins. That's pretty good. But you've been, I guess, when you start off the hottest start in NASCAR since like the 90s or 80s or whatever you may say, I think that's why it looks like he's doing a lot worse than he really is, but he's still doing pretty damn good. So I think their approach should be try to score as many points as they can. They're not really a stage point type of team. Like they're usually they never win stages is what I'm getting at. Like if you look at his stage wins this year, I think he only has like 1 or 2 at most, which is really weird considering he has 5 race wins and multiple top 2 finishes. So yeah, for just to end that all, yeah, I don't really think he's in a slump, but I think Denny Hamlin's just been that good, and it will be really fun to watch these two on the next 8 ovals because I think it could go either way between both of them. So I'm really curious to see who gets the regular season championship because I don't think it's going to be Ryan Blaney or Ty Gibbs or Kyle Larson. I think even from week 6 of this season, we all said it's either going to be Denny Hamlin or Tyler Reddick. And I think most of our Grid Network clips on social media are either you and me, Joe, or Tanner and I talking about which one of those two are going to win it all. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you said perfectly. It only looks like a slump if you look at those numbers and the rest of the numbers. We know the summertime season could get a little bit of a lull for some teams. I feel like they don't need to change their approach. They just keep doing what they got to do because they could have won in San Diego. They've had good run. I mean, really just some bad luck here and there. And this is NASCAR. Everybody's going to have bad luck. I mean, even today, referring back to MotoGP for a brief second, Marco Beschecchi, of course, crashed out, lost ground. Kimi Antonelli, 3rd place. It looked like Tyler Reddick with a top 5 or even a win could have taken the grid ranking lead. He's still in 2nd place, 16.53. So still overall, he is doing a good job. This is not to their standard, and I think for 2311, they shouldn't put too much effort to it. But I do like what you said about maybe go after those stage points because that might be something to chase. That'll become very valuable. Now, one driver looking to make some valuable gains this next 8 race was Ty Gibbs. What a season he is having. Today, he won both stages and came home in 3rd place, 4th in the points standing. So for Ty Gibbs, he is having a pretty stellar start to the year. And considering how far we are, I mean, Ty Gibbs, he's in the grid ranking 24th place. He is ahead of Christopher Bell, much more seasoned teammate, Chase Briscoe, who is 11th in the points. And a lot of people have been saying, Matthew, that you need to be in the top 6 to have a real shot at this championship. Well, Ty Gibbs is well within the top 6, but is he a serious contender? Or does he need to step up and have more wins? Because still just 1 race win, but nothing else really to show when it comes to victories.
Yeah, I think he can be a serious contender. I really do believe that in my heart. And so I think I even said it after, was it Kansas, when he had like the 7 or 8 top 10s in a row early in the season. I said, if it's not a Hamlin or Reddick, it's probably going to be Ty Gibbs. And I really discredited Ryan Blaney's incredible performances as well. So obviously he's still ahead of Ty in the standings. But Ty, I think to get to the chase, I'm a little worried because like, obviously he's never been to Chicagoland, but I'm sure he'll do fine there. Atlanta's not really his best track. Indianapolis, he hasn't really done well at. Iowa, he really hasn't done well at. Richmond hasn't really been his strong suit either. I mean, he's been decent at Daytona, so I'm not worried about that. And then New Hampshire, I don't think's his best track either. I think he's had bad luck at New Hampshire. So for Ty, I'm more worried about the 8 races prior and if he can build on those. But once he gets into the chase, I think when you have Darlington, Gateway, Bristol, Kansas, Las Vegas, I truly think Ty Gibbs can make a legit run, especially if he, like you had mentioned, finishes in the top 6 in the regular standings. So, yeah, what a freaking day. I think that proved I'm very pro stage racing, and I think I've said it on multiple broadcasts before. I get flipping the stages, but at the same time I don't, because you watched a guy like Ty Gibbs on very long green flag runs, didn't flip the stage, maximized his stage points, and still finished 3rd, scoring 54 points, which is more than anyone else besides the race winner. Overall, I think if you don't think you're going to beat Shane Van Gisbergen, you do what Ty Gibbs did. And I think that Ty Gibbs could have had a legit shot if there was a late final restart. I would argue I think Chase Briscoe could have had a legit shot too, because Shane was kind of falling off at the end, but we'll never know if he was just toying with his competitors or not, because that's what Shane does. But yeah, Ty Gibbs, I still think he's a very underrated talent. I know he had a very slow start to his Cup career, especially going from 23-11, very part-time, throwing him to the wolves with no Cup experience, and then this is now his 4th season with Gibbs, finally got a win at Bristol. I wouldn't be surprised if Ty Gibbs is a top 4 finisher in both the regular season and in both the overall, I guess, final season. And yeah, I think it's really cool though, because my favorite thing about it, Joe, this season will be you can go into the final race and there's still points racing. It's not going to be something like a Denny Hamlin, who I believe if stage points existed or counted for the championship for last year, he still would have beaten Kyle Larson. But obviously that's not what happens. So yeah, it'll be cool to see stage points finally count in the last race of the year. It'll be the first time in quite a while that's happened.
Now that we have stage points and a chase rather than stage points and winning you're in, I sort of become more a fan of those stage points, because hey, you could crash out. I mean, and this is something that even happened the Winston Cup, or you look at IndyCar, F1, any other series. You could have a good strong run, something occurs, and you're taking out, got nothing to show but a 38th last place finish. Where here, hey, if you were in the top of the field at this certain point, you got some points. I think it does sort of add into that element that you can't just sandbag, especially when we get to Talladega. We know in the past that's been a track where drivers will just sort of sandbag, be in the back, wait till the very end. Well, now it's like you could wait till the end of the stage, but then you have to go through the traffic. So, but of course, Talladega has a fuel mileage issue that people want addressed. So that's something totally different. But that was one thing about today's race. Shane Van Gisbergen, we talked about it last race weekend, was how would he approach Sonoma when it comes to stage points? And they took the route of this is the easiest path to victory. We saw what Ty Gibbs did, and he got that path to victory. Do you think there might be a side in SVG and the Trackhouse team thinking, maybe we should have stayed out for that first stage or second stage to collect at least 10 more points?
I think it's something that they probably look at, just considering how well Ty Gibbs ended up doing, even without, I think there was only one actual caution for cause in this race, but it was really early on in that final stage. I think the final stage had a really long green flag run, but that's just something that teams play with, and it works out sometimes, and I guess you could say sometimes it doesn't. So when you were in a position, I think like in the O'Reilly race, like a Brent Cruz who really wanted to make up points for the chase gap, if you look at the O'Reilly standings now, he is now in the chase by at least 20 points, and I think he got at least 15 stage points. So it's just one of those things. It all depends on the race you're racing. I think at the Cup Series, a lot of people expect Shane to win, who's going to finish second or third. But you have those guys like a Ty Gibbs who go into these races with that mentality. I can win for sure. Even if we want it, we're going to get those points and I can go try to win. Not many people can do that. There's probably only 4 road course guys in the Cup Series that I think could stay out, get those points, and then come back in and still like battle through the field to try to win. And obviously I think Ty and Shane are 2 of those. But yeah, that's kind of my answer to your question. Maybe they'll look back on it if they miss, but he still was so far ahead. He did get stage points in both stages. That's pretty awesome for him. But hey, if he misses the chase though by 2-3 points, maybe they're going to be like, oh, we should have stayed out at one of the many road courses. Obviously, we wouldn't have this conversation if he didn't get completely wiped out at San Diego, but that's a whole other topic.
Yeah, San Diego. I mean, if he misses it by like a handful of points, people will probably say, oh, San Diego. I know we'll think about what he did today in Pittin, but yeah, just so many unknowns, because if they did stay out and then a caution came out and then they would lose all those positions, everybody would be talking about why didn't you guys pit? So all what ifs. In the chat room, before we switch over, NASCAR should have 2 classes, the road course class and the oval class. IndyCar had that for a while. They had it was the AJ Foyt oval trophy standings and Mario Andretti road course. Just 2 separate little awards, and then of course the overall championship. But that could be pretty fun. So thank you everyone for all the comments in the chat room. We got F1, IMSA, MotoGP, and plenty of more racing. Matthew, thank you so much for your time. And of course, we encourage everyone at gridnetworktv.com to see Matthew's article, and also tomorrow, Grid Rising, where they're going to recap more races from Sonoma, a little bit more about Shane Van Gisbergen, but also NASCAR Brazil, NASCAR Mexico, NASCAR Canada, ASA, Cars West, bunch of racing. And of course, the weapon of the week and the shining moment. But we'll ask you for now, what is your shining moment?
I think without a doubt, when you look at the Cup level, we talked about it a few times, or we just overall Trackhouse Racing to be able to go 1-2 with Raul Fernandez and Ayagura, and then go Ayagura, then Raul Fernandez in the second MotoGP race, their first 1-2s, and they did it in the sprint and the Grand Prix. And then Trackhouse Racing drivers driving for Junior Motorsports and the O'Reilly Series going 1-2, and Van Gisbergen and Connor Zilisch. And then at the Cup level, Shane winning for Trackhouse Racing with Connor Zilisch finishing 7th. So overall, it's very, very, very hard to beat that. And I'm sure we have a couple more on Grid Rising, like you mentioned, for shining moments. But oh my gosh, there are so many different NASCAR series. I know Ace Steeler watches our Grid Rising programs. Pretty much, if you want to look at a NASCAR road course class, you can go to either Brazil or even Canada. NASCAR Euro, especially, I think all 12 of Euro's rounds are on road courses. Most of NASCAR Canada is on road courses, and the NASCAR Brazil's got like 1 or 2 ovals out of their whole series. But I agree with Ace Steeler 1,000%. I think a road course specific series, even if it raced like ARCA cars and just went to the tracks at the same time as ARCA had it like to be its own little division. Maybe that's what they're going to do with the electric vehicle when it gets there. So I guess ABB, they got to figure that one out. But yeah, my shining moment, Trackhouse Racing, absolutely without a doubt. I'm not even going to go into the other ones. So yeah. Oh, you're muted, Joe.
Trackhouse Racing, I think, being the shining moment for everyone. I think that's going to be easily the shining moment for everyone. Sorry, I'm late. And see here, thanks for joining us, Jamie. Thank you, Matthew. Jamie, you're in time for Formula One. Kobe, let's get started with F1 in Austria at the Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, and with this weekend's Austrian Grand Prix, there was some controversy in qualifying on Saturday over the yellow flag, and Jordan Russell speeding past the claim to pole and went on to win the race. And Ferrari didn't have much of a challenge against the Mercedes drivers as Kimi Antonelli finished 3rd, and Max Verstappen got 2nd in the Red Bull, his best finish of the year, who is now in the grid ranking with the 2 Mercedes drivers, Lewis Hamilton and Oscar Piastri, who got in. And Joe, going back to the qualifying controversy on Saturday, can you explain exactly what happened there, and did that give Russell the ultimate advantage that allowed him to win today?
Yeah, so the issue that occurred is simply when the car crashed that we saw and George Russell saw, you're looking at that yellow box. It's essentially the electronic yellow for full course caution, local yellows. Everyone was under the assumption you have to slow down right away. But that was not the case. This is the case of George Russell, which we know he's a smart driver. Saw it, understood what it meant, so he kept going. So at the end of the day, I know a lot of people that probably weren't exactly aware thought, oh, he's going to get his track time disallowed. He's going to lose the pole. No. I think a lot of people just assumed that, it was going to be the case. But this is one of those deals where if you understand the rules, you could just keep going. And that's what he did. Now, was it the ultimate decider? If this was Monaco, I would say yes, because in Monaco, it's so hard to pass. You really need the pole to just go pretty much take care of business, because unless you have a car that really does not have the speed, but you got the pole, you're going to win. So I think this was not that case. He had to battle Lewis Hamilton. He had to still race really hard because he has a young teammate in Kimi Antonelli there as chomping for any mistakes on him. Even if it's a mistake on pit road by the team, he's going to be there to take advantage of it. You had Max Verstappen, who looked really good today. He would have been there to take advantage of it. He had to put up a fight. Yes, towards the end, it became, okay, he's going to win this race unless something goes wrong, which he could tell you about Canada where something did go wrong while he was leading. So it wasn't just handed to him. I get it. People get upset when they think they understand the rules and then, no, we didn't, because it almost looks like, are you playing favorites? That is not the case. I don't feel the FIA is doing anything. No funny business is going on. They're just applying the rules as they have to. And remember, it's stewards each and every race weekend, so it's different folks looking at it. But I think at the end of the day, George Russell, if he had started second, even third, I think he probably would have gotten this win.
Yeah, regardless of what happened in Saturday on qualifying, I think this was George Russell's race to lose, and he perfectly executed, did everything he needed to do today, and ended up on the top step of the podium. And it's really starting to feel like the momentum in the Formula One Championship, is starting to swing a little bit. I'm not sure if you agree with me there, Joe, but I know at the start of the season, Kimi Antonelli got off on this hot streak, and then the last few races, Kimi is still performing, extremely well. You see, got a podium today, but it really feels like that, George Russell is trying to slowly claw his way back in the championship lead. But given the advantage that Kimi has built up over time, if Kimi can keep being consistent and continue to roll off more wins later in the season, it might still be a tall order to beat George Russell to beat Kimi Antonelli. But if George can have more race weekends like he had today, and start getting the upper hand on Kimi like we thought he was going to do, at least for the remainder of this season, then I think George Russell, can potentially close the gap, because we still need to see what Kimi Antonelli is made of at the pinnacle of motor. So when it comes down to competing for a championship, we're not quite there yet. Obviously still early in the season, but once crunch time rolls around and if that margin, begins to close even further than it has after today's win by Russell, it'll be interesting to see if George Russell's experience is going to outweigh Kimi Antonelli's inexperience. We can see the advantage right now is only 25 points. So basically, Kimi Antonelli retired the next race. George Russell gets the win, and boom, it's game on.
Yeah, game on. And I think you bring up a good point about that. It feels like George Russell is starting to gain a little bit of momentum, and Kimi Antonelli starting to slip. I mean, the first couple of laps, locking it up, going wide, and those are the kind of mistakes you can't be doing. And it'll be a lot of fun to see how this will all play out. Because at the end of the day, George Russell has that experience. I think he has that sense of, okay, I fell behind. I just need to put together some good race weekends. Where Kimi Antonelli, I don't know if he has that kind of mentality yet. He is really talented. Maybe he does, but it's going to be a test. And at the end of the day, for Kimi Antonelli, he needs to just focus on, okay, if Russell's going to win this race, I need to make sure I'm in second place, at worst third place, but anything more, you're talking big points given up. So it'll be fun to see what happens. Still plenty of racing, 8 rounds out of 22.
You're really excited. Just early on in the season. See, we're not even halfway through the Formula One season yet, and the gap in the championship between the Mercedes drivers is one race, and then just a racing a little bit. Lewis Hamilton will be cool if Lewis cuts down the gap, and we're gonna have a three-way fight for the championship. It'll be the two Mercedes drivers versus the former Mercedes driver who just happened to win all those world championships with the Silver Arrows. That would be really fun to see Lewis go up against two of his former guys at Mercedes for this year's Formula One World Championship. And speaking of Lewis, he was engaged in an intense battle today with Max Verstappen, who led the Maximum with a second place finish and a fierce battle with Hamilton and the prancing horse. Neither driver was given the other an inch of room. I looked at the highlights on the Formula One page, and Lewis and Max, they were going at it just like it was 2021 all over again. So Joe, I know it's been a few years since Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton have actually had to battle each other on the track in the manner that they did today. Were you surprised that after all this time that both drivers still race each other very hard? Because in the year since that 2021 championship battle, it seemed like things have gotten a lot more cordial lately between them, because when I see them talking, it seems like a nice interaction.
Yeah, I agree. It caught me by surprise because since 2021, it seemed like, oh, maybe they buried the hatchet and they moved on. But today shows, no, it hasn't. It had me thinking, it was like, okay, 2022, 23, 24, it was the Max Verstappen show. People said we were living in the Max Verstappen world. There's nothing we could do. So I could see where for Max Verstappen, oh, Lewis Hamilton, I'm lapping him down. He gave me the room. Or Lewis is having a good day, but maybe I need to get around him. But it's one of those deals where I know I have the superior car. I'm moving forward. But now we're in a situation where it's a little bit different. Lewis Hamilton, one win. He wants to get more wins, try to close that gap in the championship. Max Verstappen, no wins. Not having that good of a season. He wants to get back in the championship hunt. He wants to go out there contend for wins. So I think that is what made things different. Because this wasn't a case of Lewis Hamilton on strategy knows he's going to get past my Max Verstappen because he had fresher tires. This was head-to-head. I need to keep Max Verstappen behind me. I'm going to run him wide. And then when Max Verstappen, I'm side by side. I'm going to run him wide. And it just seems like, okay, they may be cordial and friendly the last few years, but when it's the win on the line, a podium on the line, they still have that intensity against each other. And I think that's going to be exciting for the fans to see what happens between the two of them. I think they'll still race each other hard, but we get this, Kobe, where week after week, we have the Mercedes, we have Ferrari, and Max Verstappen up there. I think we're going to have a good time talking about these two drivers racing each other and how hard will they race each other. I don't know if they'll get 2021 level again, but it almost looked like 2021 the way they were racing each other today.
Yeah, quite a blast from the past, and the past wasn't so long ago, right? Yeah, I believe it's good for Formula One when Ferrari and Red Bull are giving cars to Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton capable of fighting each other. I think the sport is better off when we're looking at two of the all-time greats of the sport going head-to-head in battle. And what we saw today, hopefully that's a glimpse of what's to come later on in the season. For Lewis Hamilton, it seems like he's in a better position to potentially get in the championship fight if Kimi Antonelli or George Russell, have a hiccup in the next few Grand Prix races or not. Now, Max still has a ways to go before he gets in the conversation, but it was really exciting to see those two scrapping and going at today, racing each other as aggressively as they ever have, because we know they truly want to beat each other and all of their competitors on the racetrack. And is really good for Formula One when you see stuff like that. And for George Russell, it was an important win to get momentum as we approach Silverstone next. And we all know what happened in 2021 between Verstappen and Hamilton at Silverstone when they made contact, and Verstappen had that massive shot at the Copse corner. That's the highlight reel that we've been seeing for the last several years at a track in the British Grand Prix. That is one track, that George Russell, will want to win. Along with him, Lando Norris and the McLaren as the defending world champion. Plus, Hamilton, the Ferrari, would love to get another win at Silverstone. And when we're talking about the crown jewels on the F1 calendar, Joe, we always talk about the Monaco Grand Prix as the premier crown jewel event. But if I had to potentially pick a second crown jewel event, I would probably look at this British Grand Prix at Silverstone, because we know that a significant portion of the Formula One fan base are British, and they always pack Silverstone every single year for this event. And we just recently had 3 British drivers finish on the podium for the first time in many, many years. So there's a lot right in the line with those 3 British drivers, 3 different teams. So in your opinion, which one of those 3 British drivers are more likely to win this year's British Grand Prix?
The one that stands to mind is George Russell, based off what happened today and the fact that the Mercedes team still looks like they're their team to beat. Of course, there's Kimi Antonelli. He could be the spoiler, but I think George Russell, when it comes to the British drivers, is the one I would say has to be the favorite. I'm really curious about Lando Norris and the McLaren team. It seems like some weekends, hey, we have something. We could contend. And then there's some race weekends where it's like, oh, we don't have anything. We're just going to be 5th, 6th place, maybe worse. I mean, in the grid ranking, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, they're both in it, 14th, 15th. Max Verstappen got back into the grid ranking, 30th. But Oscar Piastri is now in the grid ranking on 33rd. So Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris fell out. So I'm curious to see how the McLaren team is going to come out. Are they going to have a car where they're going to be contended for that potential win? Or is it going to be a car where, just like today, Lando Norris, you're going to have to settle down for 7th place behind the 2 Red Bulls, behind your teammate Oscar Piastri, and you're losing ground in the championship. I'm really curious, Kobe, just to see how McLaren turns out, because that could be the second driver out of 3. If McLaren has a great car and he could bring the fight to the Ferraris, I would say he'll be the number 2 driver. Lewis Hamilton is the 3rd. But if McLaren brings a car that does not qualify well and they're starting behind the 2 Ferraris, I think Lewis Hamilton will be that 2nd place driver.
Yeah. For me, I think since he's in what's considered the best car in the grid right now, I think George Russell would probably be favorite to be the British driver, the best chance to win their home Grand Prix. And then I had to put Lewis Hamilton in 2nd, and then the Lando Norris and the McLaren in 3rd. And there's gonna be a lot of bragging rights heading into this British Grand Prix among those 3. Yeah, I know we just had the first all British podium for the first time in a long time, and I think it would be even special if those 3 could do it again, at Silverstone in front of a British crowd. So I always look forward to Silverstone every single year. As everybody knows, I'm not a morning person. When we have these Formula One races happening in Europe, early in the morning here in the US, I usually watch the races later and catch up on it. But the British Grand Prix is one of those races I'll wake up and actually watch, because it's always a spectacle at Silverstone, and 9 times out of 10. You're probably going to get something that we're going to be talking about that's either controversial or highly notable on our great wrap-up shows. So can't wait to see which British driver is able to finish the highest or potentially stand on the top step of podium at Silverstone in the next race. And with that concludes our Formula One section. And Joe, we have some things to talk about from the Sailing 6 Hours of the Glen.
Oh man, the Sailing 6 Hours of the Glen. Tune in at the beginning of that race before the Cup Series race at Sonoma got started, and for the 2nd consecutive race in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship action, Express Racing, the number 31 Wheeling Engineering Cadillac, took the overall win in GTP class. After starting from the pole, Action Express won the Sailing 6 Hours of the Glen by 11.166 seconds over the number 93 Meyershank Racing Acura. Jack Adkins, Earl Bamber, and Frederick Vesti shared the victory at Glen, but it was Adkins who extended his championship lead over Lauren Heinrich, who finished 3rd overall in the number 5 JDC Miller Motorsports Porsche. Kobe, Action Express, with back-to-back wins and a podium, finished in the first 6 races. Does Action Express look unstoppable?
Honestly, I don't think we've given enough credit to Action Express to start off this season. And as the Sailing 6 Hours of the Glen was coming to a close and Action Express, was in the right position to win, I started looking over the stats, and it didn't dawn on me that this Action Express team is the only team in the GTP class this season to finish on the podium in every single race. They got a runner-up in the Rolex 24. They finished third in the Mobile 1 12 Hours of Sebring, and they got back-to-back runner-ups at Laguna, Seca, and Long Beach. And then right before the Le Mans break, they won on the streets of Detroit, and now they come out of the Le Mans break, winning at Watkins Glen International in the Sailing 6 Hours of the Glen. So really crazy that this Action Express team has finished on the podium every single race this year. And it's crazy because, we're at the end of June now, and we actually have 3 more races left in 2026 for the GTP class. This season is just absolutely flying by. We got a 6-hour race coming up at Road America, which I'm extremely excited about. Then we got Indianapolis, the sprint race, and then close out the year at Motul Petit Le Mans. So as Action Express, is heading into the end of the summer here. Crazy that we're talking about the end of the summer because I feel like it just started. And then, into the early fall with the last 2 races at Indy and Road Atlanta. It really seemed like this Wheeling Engineering Cadillac squad is, they're putting themselves in the right position for Jack Aiken to potentially claim this year's GTP championship. I know his teammate Earl Bamber would have been up there, but he ended up missing Long Beach because of his World Endurance Championship commitments with Hertz Team Jota. But he's going to be a supporter teammate and help do everything he can to make sure that Jack Aiken can take home this driver's championship, because this Action Express team, I know they've had a few down years in IMSA, but this year it seemed like that they've become that Action Express team, of all that we've seen in the past, from the time that they were in the Daytona prototype category, which later became DPI, and now the GTP class. This Action Express team, they're a force to be reckoned with. I think it'll be extremely hard to beat them. I think it'll be really cool if they end up finishing on the podium in every single race this year at Road America, Indianapolis, and Road Atlanta to close out the year. Only got 3 more races to go, and they have 3 more chances to finish on the podium and close out a strong year for Jack Aiken. But with that said, I would not count out Lauren Heinrich, who got a podium today. Lauren Heinrich already has 3 wins, this season. With Porsche Penske Motorsport, ended up getting the wins at Daytona and Sebring to take the 36 Hours of Florida. End up getting another win at Laguna, singing that big upset victory for the privateer JDC Miller Motorsports Porsche. And then some of the outliers he's had, 6th place at Long Beach. And then he got the penalty at Detroit and some fender bender stuff, which, really hurt him in the championship. So I would not count out Lauren Heinrich because he was absolutely pushing that Porsche today. And he shows that he's not afraid to go elbows out. So I'm sure, and, the last 3 races of the year, if Heinrich is on track with that number 31 Cadillac, he's not going to be afraid, to get a little rough with them, because he knows that he needs every spot on the track to try to make up, the consistency that Action Express has shown this year. But all in all, I think Action Express looks unstoppable right now. But I just wouldn't crown him yet, because anything can happen in sports car racing. But I don't see anything right now that could potentially slow them down.
Overall, they're looking really strong. Unless somebody gets something in the update, find something to bring the fight to Action Express, it's going to be hard to beat them. Watkins Glen, of course, is a tricky road course, and one of the big things with this road course in the Finger Lake regions of upstate New York, one section of track really challenged the drivers unlike any other. And we know this track, it has challenged from the Cup Series, F1, we've seen IndyCar here. But in the last couple of days, we've seen some nasty wrecks in the S's. Yesterday in the Lamborghini Super Trofa, Brandon Gadovic got spun, and the S's hit the wall very hard. Then he got hit again, driver door, by another car. According to Sports Car 365, his Precision Performance Motorsports team said Gadovic was taken to a local hospital by helicopter. We all saw how there was a prolonged caution for this. He was later diagnosed with broken legs in 3 different places, broken pelvis in 3 different places, and a concussion. Very serious. I could tell, Kobe, when I was watching this coverage, you could tell in the broadcast booth they knew this was a serious wreck, and they were very concerned. During today's 6-hour race at the Glen, 2 GTP entries crashed out in spectacular fashion. The number 60 Meyershank Racing Acura and the number 23 Heart of Racing Aston Martin exited the pits under the full course caution. Colin Braun in the Acura and Roman DeAngelis The Aston Martin were traveling uphill through the S's at a high rate of speed. Braun was checking up as he was seeing the GTD cars coming up, which caused a reaction from DeAngelis, who slammed on the brakes, got sideways, and crashed into Braun. We also saw the number 70 Inception Racing Ferrari of Ali Milroy got turned into S's, collecting multiple GTD cars. There was another accident in that section of the track when the overall race winning number 31 Cadillac wiped out the number 21 AF Course Ferrari assignment man, causing a right side door to break off the Ferrari. I couldn't believe when that happened, and luckily for Action Express, they avoided the penalty for avoidable contact, which I thought was coming, but it was ruled not. I have not seen anything like this where the S's were just so. There was like the treacherous, complex corners of the weekend. Were these incidents a reminder of how dangerous the S's can be at Watkins Glen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been a while since we've seen, some nasty crashes up in the S's. I mean, over the years, we've seen some really big ones. I know we've seen some big ones in, watching NASCAR races there over the years, some like big pileups, those some really hard hits. And like back in the day, I think someone even went over the wall. Yeah, just show how dangerous, this section of the track is. And when you're going uphill through the S, very treacherous, and you're reaching a high rate of speed. So that's like one of the tracks where you do not want to, go around it. And these incidents you mentioned, Joe, it's just really crazy to see. What happened yesterday in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo race? Yeah, that was a nasty one for Brandon Godovic. I remember Brandon used to be a road course ringer in the NASCAR Raleigh Auto Parts Series, quite a handful of years ago. And I know he switched, to sports car racing to focus on his Lamborghini Super Trofeo program. Yeah, that was really scary to see the Lamborghini just get spun off the nose of another, hard in the wall. That was one big hit. And then he got hit full speed, in the driver's door by another competitor. It's one thing to take one big hit through the S's, but when you take another big hit, that can, understandably soften the chassis when you get a second hit like that. And to hear how serious the injury was, like, my goodness, that is just absolutely awful. I'm definitely going to be thinking about Brandon Godovic moving forward, and hopefully he'll have a speedy recovery. It's one thing to break your leg, right? But to break one leg in 3 different places, that is a nasty, gruesome injury to recover from, along with, breaking your pelvis in 3 different places as well, and a concussion on top of that. Yeah, so that's a driver who is, probably gonna need an extensive amount of time to recover, and hopefully we'll see him back on a racetrack at some point once he's recovered from his injuries. And then I guess the most controversial one of them all was what happened during the full course caution today between Meyer Shank Racing Acura of Colin Braun and then the number 23 Harder Racing Aston Martin of Roman DeAngelis under the full course caution. Which is really crazy to think. You don't think you'll see crashes like that under the full course caution. And I'm still not entirely sure what happened here, but what looks like what happened, it seemed like the Acura and Aston Martin, they were just speeding up, trying to catch up to the back of the pack there. And I know the GT cars were up there, and I guess Colin Braun saw that he was carrying a high rate of speed to the back of the GT field there, so he checked up, and then Roman DeAngelis saw him checking up in a chain reaction. He smacked the brakes to try to avoid hitting Colin Braun, and then hit the brakes so hard that he spun into Braun and tore up 2 GTP entries. So I guess that's a lesson for those drivers that next time maybe go uphill through that and then catch up to the pack at a lower rate of speed. That there was no reason for them to be going up the hill that fast to try to catch up to the back of the pack if you're trying to avoid a situation like that. And I also saw on motorsport.com they got a quote from Henrik Hedman, who was very upset over what happened. And Henrik, told them, he said, there was a couple of GT cars in front of me, and we're trying to catch the pack, and we come uphill at the top of the S. He said the whole GT field was standing still. And he said, so the 2 cars in front of me nearly hit the cars in front of them and went to the right and parked. And he said, I saw that and parked my car. And he said, well, you're standing still, and then you're just going to go again on the big bang. He said he spoke to Colin Braun and Acura, and they said they have a spotter, and that's why they stopped, because spotter in that section said that there were cars stopped there. And Henrik Hedman said good for them. And he said, then he also talked to the Aston Martin, and he said they actually did not have a spotter, and he said he didn't understand, and like how they could see that there was a big pile up, coming at full speed, and then he said then he hits the Acura from behind, and the Acura gets pushed into him. Yeah, he said he was super sorry for Colin Brown and Acura, but super happy that there was a car in between, or Henrik Hetman, I believe he was in, the Ferrari, one of the GTD Ferraris. He said that he believes if it wasn't for the Aston Martin, crashing into the Acura, that he'd probably be in the hospital right now, given the high rate of speed. And Joe, I must say that if what Henrik Hetman says is correct, that the Aston Martin team did not have a spotter, that's extremely alarming, isn't it?
It is, and it's just one of those deals where at a track like Watkins Glen, you have to be on top of it. The essence, when you look at it, especially since the elevation change and all, the guardrails are always going to be there. They can't really move them further away. We know there's been tragedies in the past. I'm talking long ago. F1, we had deaths occur over in NASCAR back in the late 80s. This track is, we've seen how treacherous it can be, and it was just to see the accidents at the SS occurring there, was just like, man, you gotta be on top of it. Everybody, the spotters, the drivers. It's just, this is racing. This is motorsport. I feel sometimes we get so immune. Like, you see a big crash, everybody gets out, and sometimes they're even mad at each other and they start pushing and shoving. But when you see these, just like how the commentators on the television seemed like they understood, like, this is really serious. I had that pit in my stomach, like, too. Like, this is really a big hard crash.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And also, want to make a correction. Henrik Hetman was in the Dragon Speed Corvette, not Ferrari. Remember, they ran a Ferrari a few years ago, but they were in one of the GTD Corvettes for the Dragon Speed entry of Henrik Hetman. But moving forward, hopefully the harder racing Aston Martin team has a spotter, because a spotter probably could have really helped in that situation, as Colin Brown was able to slow down. But unfortunately, the Aston Martin kept going, and based on what Henrik Hetman is saying, like, you imagine if the Acura was not there because Henrik had stopped ahead, it would have been a very, very nasty incident in that case. So I guess Henrik Hetman got spared in that situation. Some of the other incidents we saw in the number 70 Inception Racing Ferrari, that was really scary incident that took out multiple GTD cars, and then the Action Express team, they got very lucky. They weren't handed a avoidable contact penalty when I think it was Earl Bamber at the time behind the wheel. He smacked. He was trying to go through GTD traffic, through the S's, and he ended up barely clipping Simon Manning, the AF Corsa Ferrari, and ended up ruining his day. And the biggest takeaway from Watkins Glen this year is that a lot of teams, are going to be spending a lot of money in the next few weeks, to try to get ready for that next race at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. And then for the GTP class, get ready for the 6 Hours of Road America, because if I had to estimate the amount of damage suffered in today's race, Joe, it's probably going to soar well over $1 million. Just a lot of torn up race cars today, and a lot of it, could have been avoided.
Yeah, a lot of it could have been avoided. Millions of dollars in tore up cars. And of course, they still have more racing July 12th. So not far from now. Canadian Tire Motorsports with LMP2, GTD Pro, and GTD Class in action. But looking at the other winners from the Watkins Glen race weekend, you have the number 99 AO Racing Orica 07 Gibson for Dane Cameron, PJ Hyatt, and Johnny Edgar. They won LMP2. GTD Pro, it was an emotional win for the team honoring the late IndyCar team owner Dennis Reinbold. They renamed the Vasher Sullivan Racing with Dreyer and Reinbold for the race, took class honors in the number 14 Lexus with Jack Hawthorne and Ben Barnicoat. Meanwhile, the number 9112 Manthire Porsche, Ricardo Pera, Ryan Hardwick, and Richard Leitz won GTD. So IMSA, as I mentioned, they're returning on Sunday, July 12th at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park with LMP2, GTD Pro, and GTD Class in action. And of course, They're all part of the Grid Endurance Performance Index. Update will be coming later on. We still got a couple series from the grid ranking before we wrap up the show, Kobe.
Yeah, and let's start off with MotoGP and the continuation of what's been, an amazing time to be at Trackhouse Racing. That's Trackhouse's MotoGP program. Enjoyed the same success as our NASCAR team, and what's been a dream come true for team owner Justin Marks. Raul Fernandez won the sprint race on Saturday and finished second in the Grand Prix, but his teammate Augura won the Dutch TT at Assen, his first career MotoGP Grand Prix win, and he also became the first Japanese rider to win in MotoGP since 2004. So over 20 years in the making there for a rider from Japan to stand on the top step of the podium in professional motorcycle racing. And Ogura, after this win, moved to fourth in the standings with teammate Fernandez in sixth, and they're second in the MotoGP team standings behind the Aprilia factory team. As we all know, Trackhouse on MotoGP, they're one of the independent teams, of Aprilia, and they are the best independent team right now in MotoGP. So, Joe, when we look at, the different components of this Trackhouse MotoGP team, you have to think of the team principal, Davide Brivio, who was announced, early on this year that he's actually going to be leaving Trackhouse MotoGP at the end of the year. And I wonder, with his departure at the end of the season, when they put someone else in place, how is that going to affect the team? Are they going to drop off in performance, or are we going to see the continuation of what's been a great season so far for this Trackhouse MotoGP team, just under a different leader? And then we all know the Aprilia bikes have been really good this year, and they also have two good young talented riders, and Raul Fernandez and Augura, who ended up getting the win today. So when you look at Davide Brivio, the bikes this year for Aprilia, and those two young riders, which do you think has contributed most to Trackhouse's MotoGP success?
I think all of them has contributed a good amount of success. It's really hard to gauge which one has been the biggest difference maker. I will say this, though. When you look at their team principal, David Brivio, who, if we remember, back in 2020, led the Suzuki team with Juan Mir to a championship with just one race win. Before we had the sprint era. Based on consistency, having a great bike that could get the job done. But what happened the following year? Nothing. He left for F1. He came back. He's here with Trackhouse, and then earlier it was announced he was leaving. I think he has a key role when it comes to building up a team. When it comes to maintain that team, a team that has been built up. It's like building a program up. Whoever's coming in has to maintain or elevate that program. And to have the Aprilia bikes, the big jump they made from last year to this year, you're going to feel pretty good that, hey, we are on the right track. The matter is, can Aprilia continue to bring a bike that is better than the Ducati and everybody else? The young riders, they're getting confident each and every week from riders that the factory teams, okay, we're going to bypass, nice knowing you, but we're not going to take you, to Justin Marks, hey, I'm going to take you both. We'll put you in the Trackhouse team. And look what they've done. I think Raul Hernandez, my opinion, is underrated. And then Ogari getting that win today, finally. I mean, he's been in the grid ranking just about all season long. He's been very good at it. So I'm really impressed with what they've done. I think it's a combination of everything all working together. So at the end of the day, if Aprilia has strong bikes next year and they have the same two riders, which will just build up that chemistry more, you could lose your team principal, have a new one, and I think they'll still be contenders, they'll still be successful. But if that program starts to have weakness because maybe the program, the new team principal is just not cutting it, you might not see anything until like probably the second half of the year or probably the following year. Of course, if Aprilia brings a bike that's just no good, you'll see that immediately in 2027. But I think the two riders, they are the solid foundations for Trackhouse MotoGP team.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot for Trackhouse to be excited about on both sides of the Atlantic right now. I remember earlier this year, Joe, we heard some rumors that Trackhouse was actually looking to exit MotoGP. And based on how things are going right now, I think those rumors are going to finally be put to bed because, for goodness sake, they just had Superfile come on as the title sponsor. So they're the Superfile Trackhouse MotoGP team. And, we saw Superfile first introduced this year in the Daytona 500 as a sponsor on Shane Van Gisbergen's number 97 Chevrolet. So Trackhouse on MotoGP side, they have a major title sponsor in Superfile. They have two exciting young riders in Raul Fernandez and Iro Gura. And it seemed like that they have all the right people in the right places over there, to continue finding success in MotoGP and being one of the independent teams. Anytime you can outdo one of the factory teams, that's going to be a really good day for your organization. And based on the weekend, this team has had in NASCAR and MotoGP. Team owner Justin Marks he's truly has to be riding on cloud nine right now because he was able to have Shane Van Gisbergen win. Although not in a Trackhouse car yesterday at Sonoma No Rally Auto Parts Series race, he was still a Trackhouse contracted driver driving for Junior Motorsports, and then they got to win today at Trackhouse, and then you see both of your MotoGP riders on the top step of the podium on Saturday and Sunday. And Joe, wanted to get your quick opinion on something that well-known sports car racer Ryan Eversley said on X tonight in regards to Trackhouse sweeping both MotoGP and NASCAR this weekend with their drivers and riders. Ryan Eversley said that he thinks that Justin Marks is potentially a young Roger Penske. Do you think that's a bold statement to make right now, or do you think if this Trackhouse brand and team continues to grow over time, do you think Justin Marks could potentially be on that path to becoming one of the most respected owners that we see in motorsports?
I do believe Justin Marks has the ambition. He wants to be the next Roger Penske. He wants to be the next, I would say, Chip Ganassi. Team owners that have teams in different disciplines. You look at Roger Penske, I mean, I'm just repeating what everyone knows. IndyCar, got championships, Indy 500 wins. NASCAR, championships, Daytona 500 wins. IMSA, I mean, he's done just about every form of motorsports you could think of. He's even done F1, but where he races, he is always hard to beat. Chip Ganassi, for a while, they had IndyCar, NASCAR. Of course, Chip Ganassi then sold off his NASCAR assets to Justin Marks and Trackhouse. And when Justin Marks said, we want to be something different, we're all, okay, let's see what he does. And he brought in Project 91. Okay, this is really interesting. I think a lot of people want to see a driver from a different discipline come to do NASCAR races. Then the Trackhouse MotoGP team, I thought this is way out of left field. But he is buying the assets from another independent team that is no longer around. Made the move to partner up now with Aprilia and is paying dividends. So I think he has ambition of, okay, I'm winning in MotoGP. I'm winning in NASCAR. I want to be expanding. The one thing I would say, though, a lot of people would say, I want to be that next Roger Penske, where I do have my foot on different series across the motorsports globe. But don't spread yourself thin. I think when you look at Chip Ganassi, it was the 2000s after he switched in kart, because IndyCar, kart, the split, they switched from Honda Reynard to Toyota. And Juan Pablo Montoya did not have a great championship defense season. He still managed to get Toyota their first win in IndyCar, but nothing spectacular. But over on the NASCAR side, Dodge returning, Sterling Marlin, they were getting wins. They were championship contenders in 2002 until he got injured at Kansas. But then it just seems like Ganassi Racing, their Cup Series programs just started falling back to where they're about mid-level, not exactly winning contenders, maybe once in a while. A couple wins here and there with Juan Pablo Montoya, but just not the level. Their IndyCar team, different story, successful, getting Indy 500s. It's always so hard, and I think that's something Justin Marks needs to be mindful of. Because even I was thinking about that. Hey, your MotoGP team, they're doing everything they need to do. But as Matt and I talked about their Cup Series team, well, Shane Van Gisbergen might be their only hope for the chase. So I think he has the ambition and he has the potential to do that. I think it was smart going to MotoGP, where there was already a team in existence. You bring in your resource, your revenue, your style of managing a team, and I think he's done good things. He has to be just mindful, though. You got to make sure your other team is doing well to ensure that you're getting revenue to fund both teams. If he is thinking about expanding to a third series, Kobe, I don't know where that would be a good idea, just because I feel like anything else besides IndyCar will be too costly. And even going to IndyCar, granted, I know there's 27 spots, 25 charters. Still, you're at a disadvantage without that charter, and it's still not an easy thing. I mean, so I think 2 is good, Justin Marks. If you get to a point where both sides are working, both operations are winning races and contending for championships, then expand to that third one. I think that's his best route to become the next Roger Penske.
Yeah, and respect and all respect to Justin Marks, but he still has an extremely long way to go before he's the next Roger Penske. I think in order to do that, you're going to need to, get a lot more wins in your respective series. You're going to have to win championships. You're going to have to win crown jewel races, to try to get into that conversation. And Trackhouse's, young history to be able to win, some really good races, in NASCAR, and then obviously, in MotoGP as well, just starting out, but if he wants to be in the conversation of the Roger Penske, still has an extremely long way to go. But the good thing on him, he's still a relatively young guy, and he has all these years ahead of him to try to build up this motorsport legacy. And I remember there was a rumor that Trackhouse was going to potentially enter the Indy 500. We've seen that rumor like the last couple of years or so that they were looking to partner with an existing team to try to have an Indy 500 entry on the grid, but we haven't seen that happen yet. So maybe that's something we'll see in the future. And we also saw them partner with World Endurance Championship team TF Sport, which run the Corvette GT3 program in the WEC's LMGT3 class. We saw the Trackhouse drivers team up with Scott McLaughlin. So SVG, Connor Zilisch, Scott McLaughlin, Ben Keaton in the GTD Pro class in the Rolex 24 a couple of years ago. So that was a Trackhouse led program there. So, but yeah, Justin Marks is a very ambitious guy. And when he first entered, the motorsports business with his Trackhouse brand, what was his motto? Why not us? Yeah, and those are the words that he's continued to live by as he continues to build up his growing motorsports empire. So Trackhouse is a team that we'll continue to watch, for the rest of this season and future seasons ahead. And now moving on from Trackhouse, and looking at the grid ranking, Iogura, he's now 22nd there, climbing as the former points leader. Marco Bezzecchi has been falling. He had a hard crash today in the Dutch Grand Prix, losing control in a fast section of the track and ended up taking a nasty tumble. Bezzecchi was hospitalized after the crash, but he cleared any major injuries and he was able to go home, according to Crash.net and also the MotoGP website as well. But he lost the championship lead to his teammate, the 2024 champion, Jorge Martin. Bezzecchi is now 7 points behind Martin and 9 ahead of third place, Fabio Di Gianantonio. So, Joe, is Jorge Martin now in a position to try to pull away from his teammate, who's coming off a nasty tumble there, and also a one-race suspension for smacking that Marshall in the face?
This is the opportunity for Jorge Martin to really capitalize and try to put some distance. The big reason why you want to put distance over your teammate is because the further you are ahead, the closer we get to the end of the season, the easier it is for the team to say, you're the preferred rider, you're going to get preferred treatment, compared to if you're both equal and you're both 1-2 in the championship, the team's going to say, hey, we're hands off, make the best person race each other, get the win, but don't crash each other. So for Martin, I think he has a little bit of an advantage considering that he is most likely not returning back with this team next year. So he doesn't have the pressure of, I got to, show to the Aprilia team that I could get the job done. I mean, if you're on your way out, you're just now go out there, focus on, I want to get the wins, I want to get good finishes. And that's what he did when Mark Bezzecchi had this issue. I think Bezzecchi might be under more pressure of, I need to rebound. I need to make up for what happened when I was suspended. I need to make up for this crash. And you've got another race coming up soon, buddy. You're going to be in your first championship battle because really you are now on the top equipment with Aprilia and the factory team. This is as good of an opportunity as you got. You don't want to start stumbling, and especially when you're losing to a teammate that's going to be on his way out to another team. I overall like Martin's chances. I think, and I'm hoping this age well, because I seem like when I talk about how Martinez no longer go really fast or crash, he does that, but then he got a championship, but then he got hurt, then he came back. I mean, heck, he's crashed on a victory lap celebrating. If he could just finish these races and put together the points, he can start pulling away from Marco Beschecki in the stands. And I think that's his big goal, just to try to get away. So that way it's harder for the team to say you're equal. You get to the point where, I mean, we're coming up to the halfway point of the season. 7 races to go, and you got yourself and maybe another rider, whether it's a Marc Marquez or somebody else that is not your teammate. It's going to be much easier for your team to say, you're the preferred rider, you get the preferred strategy, the setup, the preferred treatment. And then he could use that to try to get to another team next year.
Yeah, it seems like we're playing musical chairs with Jorge Martin based on all of the different manufacturers he's wrote for, whether it's from Ducati, now Aprilia, and it sounds like he's going to be at Yamaha next year based on what the rumors are saying. So I think that this will be a great chance for Jorge Martin to go out there, and try to solidify his championship lead and become the number 1 rider over at the Aprilia factory team. So as you say, Joe, to get that preference and strategy and just be the top dog there at Aprilia, because Marco Bezzecchi's lost a lot of momentum now. The big crash and then a one race suspension. He's left a lot of points out there on the table, and this is Jorge Martin's time to seize, on Bezzecchi's misfortune and try to capitalize on the momentum. Looking at the MotoGP riders in the grid ranking, Bezzecchi is 9th, then we have Martin in 18th, DJ Antonio is 19th, as I said earlier, Ogura is 12th, and then Marc Marquez all the way down in 34th. In the grid ranking. I think that's one of the lowest I've ever seen Marc Marquez in the grid ranking. He's typically, towards the very top, in the top 5, top 10. So seeing him, almost out of the grid ranking entirely, is really crazy, regardless of what point of the season we're at. And the next race weekend as a German Grand Prix, a track that Marc Marquez has had tremendous success on, probably one of his best tracks in all of MotoGP. And once we get past the German Grand Prix, that'll be the halfway point of the 2026 season. And next, let's switch over to WRC as we talk about Sebastian Ogier claiming a dramatic Acropolis Rally Greece victory today over Thierry Neuville. The Hyundai driver led into Sunday by 4.1 seconds after 2 days, but could not keep up with Ogier's pace. Takamoto Katsuta completed the podium in 3rd. Elfyn Evans, the points leader, he finished 5th, and he is now 11 points ahead of Katsuta. So not really much to talk about from the rally per se today. But Joe, I want to go back to something that me and Josh talked about on Wednesday night, Great Tonight, since you were not on the air when we talked about the new 2027 regulations. So Joe, since you haven't had an opportunity to speak on this until now, what are your thoughts on the changes that they're making, with Rally 2, giving them a special kit to juice, as I said on Wednesday night, to juice up the Rally 2 cars and make them compete on the same level as the top category? And do you think having juiced up Rally 2 cars would diminish the value of the new WRC 27 cars coming next year? And as we all know, at this point, Toyota is the only manufacturer to commit to the new regulations, and we could potentially see Hyundai and Ford, using the Rally 2 cars with this special kit to try to compete, at a lower cost.
I feel this is a case where it really shows the mismanagement from World Rally Championship, because now we're in a situation where 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I would just say, no, never. Why would we do this? But that's when the car counts were much healthier. You look at the early 2000s, about 26 years ago, 25 years ago, World Rally Championship was very popular. You had Mitsubishi, you had Peugeot, you had Subaru, you had Citroën, where you had their Sebastian Loeb starting to dominate over Tommy Mäkinen. I mean, World Rally Championship was really fallen to where they are now. And I think the problem is they try to do different things. A hybrid, for example, I think is the latest one. And that got teams not exactly liking it. Now they're going to ditch it. You look over at the car counts. Well, Subaru left, Mitsubishi left, Citroen's gone, Volkswagen's gone. It's just one after the other leaving. The true loyal in the group is Ford. They've been there forever, but they're not competitive really. Hyundai, I mean, they're still just not up to par with Toyota. So the fact that you got a situation where only Toyota's re-signed up for next year, Ford, Hyundai are not, you got to do something drastic. And I think this is where I feel honestly a bit mixed because I feel when it comes to World Rally Championship, it should be build a car, see what you could do, just like how it was in the past. But now, with the Mester in, I think this has to be done to help preserve World Rally Championship because at the end of the day, if you just have one team that just dominate and no other team that's really contending for wins against them, you're going to be losing fan interest. You're going to be losing sponsorship interest, and it's going to be an all Toyota show. Nothing against Toyota. I mean, at the end of the day, this is motorsports. This is competition. Go out there with the best car, and they've done that. But with some of these changes that World Rally has done, I feel like you're not helping out the sport of rally competition. Now we got to go to this extreme to try to entice manufacturers to come back. And we're still talking about the idea like maybe they'll come to the United States. Well, it's very important if you guys come to the United States, have a strong car count. Will this help World Rally say, hey, in our WRC 27, we have 12 cars, but there's only 4 true Rally 1 cars. The rest are souped up Rally 2 cars. Hey, if it makes it where there's a good product, a good race, I think people will say, hey, they're competing against each other. Great. Because we know Rally 2, if you're in the World Rally 2 car and some of the top runners in Rally 1 have bad luck, you could get points in there. That's how SVG got his points in a Rally 2 car in Rally New Zealand long ago. So at the end of the day, I think this is a necessary step to try to preserve rally competition and ensure the security of World Rally Championship. But I'm hoping maybe just start listening to the teams a little bit more, the manufacturers. What do you guys want to come back in? Because I bet you if we were to get Subaru, which they still make the WRX model based on rally cars, I think that will bring several fans back and more interest. But when you only have one competitive team, unless that's one of your 4 drivers that you're going to really hope wins the championship, not a lot of talking points when it comes to World Rally Championships on why to watch and invest in that motorsport.
Yeah, and basically on Wednesday night, we were saying that this regulation set for the next couple of years is WRC is basically telling on themselves, right? That they completely got the new regulations wrong, and the fact that we could just have maybe 4 to 5 Toyotas next year, built to this new top regulation formula. That's not really a good thing, right? So I guess to try to increase the car count, this is where saving face. Which is try to get some Rally 2 cars that can't compete at the top levels, just so we don't have a low car count. And I know it can be really difficult when you only have one manufacturer out there with only a certain amount of entries, and that's not always an exciting product. I'm not sure if you saw the end of this series, Joe, but it was very painful watching the final years of the American Le Mans Series as LMP1 class.
Mm-hmm.
Because we only had the Muscle Milk Pickett Racing and the Dyson Racing team, and sometimes the Delta Wing, and then for the big events you had the Rebellion Racing team show up, and outside of that, it was basically those 2 or 3 cars going for the win, and then you did have Audi show up to Sebring and wax everybody, occasionally, but it was really hard watching less than 5 cars compete for the overall win in the final days of the American Le Mans Series, and I can imagine it wouldn't be very exciting. If we only saw 4 or 5 Toyotas at the World Rally Championship level in these WRC 27 regulations, going for the victory there and not having the competition. I know Toyota's already been the class of the field this year in this series, and Hyundai on a good day they can get the job done because Thierry Neuville has already shown us that, and he was in the hunt this weekend. So despite Toyota having the advantage, the Hyundai drivers can go out there and still be competitive. And if this manufacturer does not commit to the new WR27 rules, and decides to go to the Rally 2 model and take on the WRC kit, to compete at a lower cost, I think it would be great to have more contenders in the top category. Make it a lot more exciting. But Joe, here's what worries me after the 2028 season. What I know this is only set to last through 2028, 2027, and 2028 with the juiced up Rally 2 cars. So here's my concern: what if we get into the 2029 season and when we're expected to give these manufacturers time to get into WRC27? I said my biggest concern is what happens if we still at that same place where we are, enter next year, where it's only Toyota, and then the other manufacturers haven't bought in. What's the series going to do then?
And that's where I feel the series really is in a bad spot. That's why I'm hopeful this works out. It's like, okay, they're getting the progress, they're getting the investment, their teams want to be in the new Rally 1 or whatever they're going to call the top level. But if it doesn't work out, I mean, I don't know. It'll be a world of hurt. And I just feel like this is something where you mentioned about the American Le Mans series. I mean, towards the end, kart, it became everybody had the same chassis, everyone had the same engine, and true fans watched it, but you did not have the kind of sponsorship involvement or the name recognition of drivers out there. My concern will be World Rally is going to probably, you'll have the drivers are still trying to do something, but it'll be at a level where it's just, will the fan interest be there? Will it survive? Because I feel the big thing is compared to other series that have brought regulation changes. I know F1's going through a little bit of some heat with people complaining about the new regulations, too much battery saving, this, that. World Rally really got it wrong where they're just completely abandoning it, the hybrid units. And we know IndyCar's been talking about that a little bit, particularly one team at Carpenter that really wants to get rid of hybrid. This just really shows like maybe the leadership needs to be looked at as like, hey, this all happened under your watch. We might need to look into some changes, not just regulations, but maybe who's calling the shots.
Yeah, for sure, Joe. I'm actually not sure who leads World Rally Championship. I'm sure you do, but whoever's leading the charge right now, the World Rally Championship. But we get to a point, 2029 rolls around and we still not able to, get the manufacturers commit to the new regulation. They'll be like, we give them 2 full calendar years to try to get ready, during this, I guess, special grandfather period. And if we still do not have the car cancel the manufacturer support, heads are going to have to start rolling, right, to try to, save this championship's future. And it seems like that this move to bring the Rally 2 up to the top category with these special kits is just a move for WRC to save face and try to keep the championship afloat the next couple of years while we wait to see what's going to happen. And I know this is a story for another day as we run long tonight about the hybrids. It seemed like at one point, Joe, during the 2010s into the early 2020s, that people said the hybrid is the future of racing. But in the last few years or so, it seemed like there's been a huge drop off in the hybrid market, and there's been, a lot of discontent in the racing community about hybrids. You mentioned WRC getting it wrong with the hybrid, and then in the IndyCar series, the hybrid situation has gotten so bad in IndyCar that IndyCar has decided to reduce the hybrid power output for the remainder of the season. That really tells you something. That maybe, that hybrid is not actually the future after all. And as I say, that's a discussion for another day. So we'll put a bow on this discussion for now. And let's shift to our Grit One Shining moment from this racing weekend. So let us know down in the chat, what's the one thing that stood out to you from this race and weekend, whether you're watching here live or on replay. Let us know, what you thought stood out, whether it was from NASCAR at Sonoma, Formula 1 in Austria, IMSA at Watkins Glen, World Rally Championship in Greece, or MotoGP at Assen. Let us know. And Joe, I'm going to start off with you. What's your Grit One Shining moment?
Matthew already said it, and I'm going to also say as well, too. Trackhouse Racing and their weekend sweep. Raul Hernandez, Aogari, Shane Van Gisbergen in the NASCAR Rally Auto Parts Series, and today in the Cup Series. Much needed win for his hopes again to chase. This is something that team could really use for Justin Marks, who has seen that NASCAR effort not exactly deliver at the level they were hoping for, but the MotoGP team has been knocking on the door. They got that win. I think this could be the start of something good momentum for the MotoGP team. Get some more wins. I don't know they'll exactly be championship contenders, but it's still very early in the MotoGP season. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that. But hopefully they could use this as a big weekend to rally everyone behind, and then just long term, remember, this is the first time we swept across all the sports we entered. That's a huge accomplishment. Congrats to everyone at Trackhouse and Justin Marks.
Yeah, for my shining moment, I'm going to stick with the Trackhouse theme, but I'm going to focus on one specific driver. Can we give a shout to Connor Zilisch for getting his first career top 10 in the NASCAR Cup Series? It's no secret. It's been a brutal season for the young phenom, who many considered one of the greatest young prospects to enter the NASCAR Cup Series since Jeff Gordon. Someone that we expect, to be winning multiple Cup races and championships by the end of his career. And so far, it's been baptism by fire in the NASCAR Cup Series. He's had quite a string of not so good results, a lot of bad luck, and many growing pains. And whenever it seemed like he was going to have a good day at any point during the season, it all went wrong. And coming to these road and street course on the schedule, that's where you truly expect him to excel. It hasn't been good for him on the ovals. And we saw Watkins Glen like he was going to get a top 5 or even a top 10 there, then had the flat tire at the end and had to make an unscheduled pit stop. He looked to be one of the contenders to win last week in San Diego and got swept up in that restart crash with SVG and Austin Hill. And today, although he fell out of the top 5 as his tires bled away towards the end, he still ended up holding on for a top 10. And for him, that has to feel like an absolute win in what's been a dreadful rookie season for him in the Cup Series. As I mentioned, Joe, despite the good day, still 34th in points. But although it looks like he's more than likely not going to make the chase unless he goes out and wins all of the stages and all of the races from here on out through the end of the regular season. This is certainly something that he can hang his hat on, be proud of, and try to build some momentum, as we get deeper into the second half of the season. So I think today is, job well done by young Connor Zilisch to finally get this result that he's been seeking all year long.
Connor Zilisch, what an effort by that team. It was pretty cool. SVG post-race was talking about how he saw Connor, they were giving each other the thumbs up, bumping each other, having a good time, and I think that's a big relief for Connor to just have a good race, get some good results, and try to start moving forward again. That said, we are out of time, but we want to thank our investors across Patreon and YouTube, Colin, the Show, Mark, Robin, David, Matthew, Crystal, Nico, and Gloria, our newest investor. You too can invest through Patreon or YouTube. And of course, you could do super chats, buy me a coffee. Jamie leads down with 5 over Jason's 3. We thank everyone for tuning in. Of course, gridnetworktv.com. Matthew Bros' article will be posted up there shortly, as well as cross social media at Grid Network TV. Subscribe, hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of our programs, including Grid Rising tomorrow with Matthew and Tanner. And then Wednesday, Kobe, Josh, they'll be on the air for Grid Tonight. I'm Joe San Diego for Kobe and Matt. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time.